Hey, 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 welcome back to the Boundaries Unleashed podcast with me, Vicky, your host. And I'm so happy you're here. I'm happy to be here with you and sharing this space and this energy, and really where we can all just come together and just remember what beautiful badasses we are and work on boundaries because, yeah, they are the future, they are our present, and they are the key to our unconditional self-love. And today's episode is episode 2 in our mini series of Becoming Her, the Boundaried Woman Awakens. And I'm really excited about this mini series because it's really a podcast journey for the mystic woman who's done performing, done overgiving, and finally ready to embody her boundaries like the woman that she knows that she can be, and really deeply on a soul level, which is just beautiful. So I have a question for you today, and this may be one that no one else is asking you. And that question is, why do you keep breaking your own boundaries even though you know better? Why do you keep breaking your own boundaries even though you know better? Why do you keep saying yes when your body says no? Why do you keep giving when you feel empty? Why do you keep overgiving when your truth is very clear? Let's talk about it. So I want you to know first that breaking your own boundaries doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're in a powerful moment of spiritual revelation where your old you is falling away and the new boundaried you is still being born. And so think of this as almost like a spiritual coming of age and a very much a becoming, right? That's why it's in this mini series. And in my LEAP coaching program, I had a client, let's give her a name. Let's call her Maya. I don't know, it's a pretty name, right? Maya. We'll call her Maya for the sake of this episode. She was one of these women who really was able to step into this boundaried becoming of her, because when she first started working with me, she was the type of woman who would take on extra projects, even though she swore she was done overworking. Every Monday she would say, this week is going to be different. And by Thursday, she was depleted. She was resentful. She was questioning herself again. And it was something that it was a pattern that was really hard for her to break, hence why she was working with me. And Maya, she first came to me thinking she needed a time hack, like a productivity hack. Like, how do I create more time? Because I have extra tasks. I don't want to do them, but I am doing them. So I need more time. And that's not really the shift she needed. And as her coach, the shift that she really needed was more of a spiritual revelation. She needed to understand, and eventually did, that her worthiness wasn't dependent on her being needed. And she started tending to her inner world. We really coached around that, about her mindset, about her worthiness, and it not being codependent or need of people needing her. And so it was really a lot of somatic practices. We really needed to, remind her nervous system to embody her sacred no. We really needed to activate her intuitive guidance. And when she started doing these things, that's when her boundaries actually started sticking. So it wasn't a time productivity hack that she was actually looking for. It was more of a revelation, a reminder of who she is and what her spirit and her intuition really wanted. And when she connected with that, boundaries stuck just like that. And she started seeing that she started gaining more time naturally just by embodying this. So let this be a reminder, let Maya's story be a reminder that our boundary work is our soul work. When we override our truth, when we abandon ourselves, when we listen, that's when we realign with her. It's when we abandon her that we feel lost and feel stuck and feel not aligned. Now, let me talk you through 3 different ways, very human ways, that we self-sabotage our boundaries. And I hope you hold these with gentleness and not shame, because you may recognize them in yourself, but I don't want you to shame yourself if this is true for you, but more of just recognize it for what it is and hold it with gentleness and knowing that this is an awareness. And then as we become aware, then we can make the shifts. Okay. So these are 3 deeply human reasons why you may break your own boundaries. The first one being you're afraid of being seen as too much or even too selfish. You are likely conditioned either by family, by faith, by society, that being a quote, good woman means you're being agreeable, you're soft, you're selfless, you're always available. And that's a hard condition to break. And, the reframe on this is that, your fullness is not a flaw. It's actually your divine assignment. And in fact, it's probably your divine gift. So not shrinking yourself down. So this may be a deeply human reason why you may break your own boundaries. You're afraid to be seen as too much or too selfish. Okay. The second way that you may break your own boundaries is you mistake empathy for obligation. Now, this is definitely one that is challenging for me, and it's one that I have to kind of remind myself over and over and over again, is that we mistake empathy for obligation. So you're probably a feeler, you're probably very intuitive, highly empath, right? And you're very skilled. And if you're like me, you can read a room before you even read your own body, right? You can read the energy of the room and everyone in it before you even check in and know what's going on with yourself. Empathy doesn't mean you have to absorb, fix, or rescue. Whew, and that's hard, especially since you probably have the tools to do all of those, right? So, what I want you to remember that it's okay to feel someone's pain or empathize with someone's pain or struggle without giving them all of your energy or feeling obligated to be the fixer, to be the rescuer. So don't mistake empathy for obligation. We can recognize, but we don't have to take ownership of what's not ours. And third way you may be breaking your own boundaries is you haven't anchored into your identity as a boundaried woman yet. And this one I see a lot with almost every single client of mine, is that they're in this kind of in-between space where they're very aware, but they haven't quite embodied this boundaried woman within themselves. So it's this kind of sacred in between. You're not who you were, right? You recognize that you're no longer a yes woman for every scenario, but you're not quite who you are becoming. You're not the fully embodied sacred no yet. You're kind of in this in-between space. So when we're living in this space, it's very easy to break our own boundaries. And honestly, it's this in-between stage where most women quit, because they feel like they can't hack it. They're used to being successful in everything. They're used to getting things right away, right? We're the perfectionist of us out there. And so this is where women quit, when they're the in-between, where they feel like I've tried, but it's still not enough. And it's one of those that we haven't embodied this new version of ourselves yet. And so when we're in this in-between and we give up, it's very easy to go back to people pleasing, because our boundaried self, this newer version of ourselves, feels unsafe. It feels unfamiliar. It doesn't feel normal. And so it can give you the false narrative that it's wrong just because it feels different and new. And so let me remind you that if you're in this space, your soul already knows the boundaried version of you, because your soul is a boundaried version of you. Okay. She's not a stranger. She's your truth, and she's ready to be reawakened if she's been closed off or just not accessed in a while. So, what can we do instead? How do we stop breaking our own boundaries? And I want to give you 3 different ways, because again, I love the number 3. So you're going to get the number 3. The first one being the ever important pause before committing. You've heard me say this before, but it is the sacred pause. It's if someone asks you something, ask you for your time, ask you for your energy, ask for your resource, pause first and say, let me get back to you. By doing this, it gives our intuition time to actually come to what we actually need and let the message come to us. If we instinctively speak right away, right, that's an instinctual reaction. And when we pause, we allow our intuition to come to our sacred answer, and it gives us time to fully respond instead of react. Okay, so that sacred pause before committing to something to make sure that it is truly aligned with what you want and need. Secondly, what we can do instead is anchor our boundary into our spiritual why. So instead of saying, I just can't right now, which is totally fine, you could totally say that, but that doesn't always anchor into your why. Why can't you right now? Why? Think of it as like a toddler ask, why? Why? Go a few layers deep here. So instead of saying, I just can't right now, things you can say instead are, I'm protecting my energy to stay in alignment. That's kind of like heady, but you can also say, my body is asking me to rest, or my soul is asking me to rest, or my spirit is leading me elsewhere. Not only is that a no to them, it's a very clear boundary, but it also reaffirms why you're saying no. So that helps you really anchor into your spiritual why. You're not just saying no to say no or to try to like be better boundaried or like stick up for yourself. It's like, why are you sticking up for yourself? Why does it matter? Why does this no matter? So really anchoring into your spiritual why, because your boundary is not just a decision, it's a devotion. And let it be, and let it have that type of value and that hierarchy in your life. Now, lastly, ways that we can break these patterns instead is to really embody the new you, literally embody the new you. So if you're in that space of in between of like old patterns falling away, but we're not quite, fully into our boundaried area yet, ways you can literally embody it is to take some sort of action immediately after you set a boundary. So maybe you've communicated something, right? My energy is leading, or my priorities are leading me elsewhere. And you literally just take your hand and just hold your arm, or like kind of give yourself like a hug. It's going to be that metaphorical feeling of your highest self or intuition kind of putting her hand on your shoulder, giving you that a girl. Right? So you can literally feel it in your body. So that tangible touch, whether it be, hand on your heart, whether it be, your hands touch your legs, touch your arms, just maybe you put your feet on the ground. So really anchoring into a decision and feeling very solid in that decision, or even just take a deep breath. That's a big one after giving a boundary, just taking a full deep breath, either before or after you communicate that boundary. It all helps ground it into your body. And your body holds a lot of wisdom. It remembers. So by doing this kind of physical embodiment or somatic practice while you're doing your boundary, in your future self, when maybe you're still like wavering, or still feeling maybe a little guilty about things, or a little shaky or second guessing your boundary, by doing these embodied practices, your body can remind you of your spiritual why, even though your brain or your conditioning anxiety may be trying to backpedal and self-sabotage you. Okay. Your body will remember. So when we can do these little things like give ourselves a hug, take a deep breath, plant our feet on the ground, really set a clear intention, all of these things are going to help us prevent us from breaking our own boundaries. And boundaries really stick when you make them real in your body, not just in your mind and in your heart. Now, I always like to anchor this into a practice. So just like some of the examples I just gave you, here are a few other things you can do. And I'm always going to give a tarot example because it is my preferred form of spiritual practice. And it's something I do with my Leap coaching program clients. So if you're not a tarot person, that's okay. You can also do this in a journal, or kind of ask yourself out loud and kind of talk it out with yourself or with a good, trusted, wise friend. And so you can ask your tarot deck or ask your journal, what boundary am I being invited to strengthen right now? And what spiritual support is available to help me hold it? So I'll say that again. What boundary am I invited to strengthen right now? And what spiritual support is available to help me hold it? Okay, you can draw 3 cards, you can draw 5 cards, you can journal it out, and let your deck be a mirror, or let your words that you write down in your journal be a mirror back. And it's not going to mirror back what you've been, it's going to mirror back what you're becoming, right? So the cards that are drawn, the words that you write, let it mirror the boundaried version of you that wants to come forward. And like I said, in my Leap coaching program, we build practices around this all the time. This is one of the things that my clients first learn as they enter into the program. And it's not just about setting the boundaries, right? We really infuse them into their nervous system, into their calendar, into their rituals, and into their relationships. So it's kind of a full circle embodiment. And it starts with these practices. Because a boundary without support is just a sentence, right? You can say you're a boundaried person, but unless it's accompanied with embodiment, it's just a sentence. When you give it some support, that's a shift. That's a shift into your aligned self. That's a shift into your boundaried era. So let me leave you with this. I want you to think about everything that we've chatted about today, that we've spoke on today. And I want you to remember that you're not messy, you're not inconsistent, you're becoming. You're in that sacred space of shifting from the person you were to the person you're becoming. And she is the boundaried you. She is the version of you that is beckoning to come forward. And it's a spiritual process. So remember that it is a process. It takes one step at a time. And know that during this process, you are safe to shift. You are safe to honor your truth. And you are safe to stop abandoning yourself for approval. And if all this is landing for you, which I hope it is, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to screenshot this episode. I want you to tag me on Instagram, and I want you to tell me what boundary you're ready to protect. What boundary is beckoning to come through and really be embodied in your life right now. And if the story that I told about my client, who I've affectionately called Maya in this episode, that's not her real name, by the way. If her story resonated with you, then LEAP might be your next step. And it's my 16-week program to really help women just like you become clear, courageous, and beautifully boundaried in every area of your life. So you can trust your intuition and release the guilt and really take your time and energy back. That's what boundaries are for. So if you're interested in learning more, interested in applying for that, just DM me LEAP on Instagram or in the comments or anywhere that you receive this. Okay, you can even email me. All this will be in the show notes if you need support with that. Okay, but the program is beautiful and it's ready for you when you're ready. And if you need a conversation to help determine if it's the right timing for you, I'd love to have that with you. We can hook that up and go to town on it, my friend. All right, so next week, on the next episode of this mini series, She Awakens, is we're going to be talking about why the boundaried woman doesn't need to explain herself and why that's so hard for you right now. Not explaining yourself. Whew, it's going to be a good one. I've already outlined it and I can't wait to deliver and give it to you guys. You're going to love listening. Okay. So remember, screenshot this episode, tag me on Instagram, let me know what boundary you're ready to bring forward. If you're interested in the LEAP program or really want to just dive into the spiritual process with a ton of support, LEAP may be your next step. So just DM me LEAP or just reach out to me. All those will be in the show notes. And until next time, I want you to remember that your boundaries matter and I want you to love yourself like you mean it. Until then, bye-bye.